It's a 3-hour movie, and for some reason we can't think of a stupid bit out of 3 hours of material.
It's too much. It's too much to think about all of it.
Okay, there you go. It's not our best, but it'll have to do.
Sure. I mean, we can't they can't all be winners, right?
No.
I don't know, man. They were all the things I could think of were crass, and I didn't want to like screw over your YouTube algorithm immediately.
I mean, for some
Um,
reason, like the YouTube controversy, which just sucks and is awful. I want to make that clear. For some reason, I guess YouTube just has a blind spot for us because our videos are too goddamn long. So they just none of them have been demonetized or flagged in any way.
it's all through the algorithm though. Like they have computers set up to analyze like like digitally analyze and transcribe the speech in the videos, and then they analyze it from there. Like it's all done with computers. They can't take the time to do that for every single video like with a real person.
Oh yeah, of course not.
So
That being said, the algorithm sucks and it's not good technology, and it's pretty well known. And
well, it is what it is. It's really just like the amount of data that you deal with. When you use an algorithm, there's just going to be a point where it just cannot do a good job, and there's no way to vet that information properly, which is why, like Facebook was directly responsible for a genocide in Myanmar, like
yeah,
stuff like that. And they're like, oh, well, uh,
didn't see that coming.
cost of growth.
I don't know.
We
The
got caught
policy
this
itself
time.
is stupid and unnecessary, but that's just my opinion. Uh,
The what's that's stupid and unnecessary?
the policy itself is stupid and unnecessary.
Yeah, sure, but that's just like, what are you gonna do? It's a lot of them are.
But
In
anyway,
any case,
okay, it's been about 15 seconds. You want to let it rip?
um, the movie started off kind of shitty
Ah,
and ended really meta. So
for some
yeah.
reason. Uh,
So we had slightly different reactions to this movie.
yeah. I know you had a great time with it.
I love it. I love it. I think it's great.
It is not for me. Is the the best way I can say it.
And
Uh,
that's fair. It happens.
it's
Um,
to me. It's kind of like a similar reason when like Wolf of Wall Street, although they're very different movies to be clear. Which is too much bombastic all the time, and it kind of up its own ass a little bit to the point where
Wolf of Wall Street is essentially a fucking musical. Like it's like a Broadway musical, but for toxic, shitty corpo guys.
yes, I agree with you completely.
The vibe hits that of a musical almost at some points. Like
I agree with you. My point is just it's very long and it's constantly throwing energy at you at all times, and after a
or at
while,
least a
just
sports movie.
you mind doing explain that one? But
I don't know. Like I feel like the whole like the things that those guys whoop and holler over, those scenes where they like lift the guy over their shoulders and shit, like, hey, you made the goal, except like, hey, you bankrupted a country for our profit. Yay. Like, it's
I have not seen that movie since it came out.
America.
Because that was one I watched it once and I was like, I don't need to watch that ever again. And I own it and I still haven't watched it again. Uh,
But yeah, this movie, it's
it's a lot.
I loved how much it was. I loved how much it tried to do and the scope of it. I really appreciated the whole. I think there are larger themes that this movie touches on that are really interesting, and I think that there are motifs that it keeps hitting throughout the movie that are kind of meta. It's not quite to the point of the movie adaptation with
Yeah.
Spike Jonze.
I love adaptation. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like on a certain level, it subtly hits similar themes and beats in terms of art imitating life and making itself.
I can see that argument. I think for me
When we
the
get to spoilers, we'll get more into the details about that
because I can definitely see what it was going for, and definitely one of those like talking about like another movie talking about the transition between silent films to talkies. and just how that affected the industry and now these characters and how movies evolve and it's about the evolution of film and all those kind of things. I get the intention behind that and I can see like what they were going for thematically. I think for me, just the execution, one just got just a little too like energy for my introverted self. And two, the characters just started to grate on me for a while and they just felt very shallow to me.
Yeah.
And like to me, that's not enough to hook me through a 3-hour film.
I mean, I feel like you're supposed to be potentially entertained by Brad Pitt's character. I don't think you're supposed to like him.
But Brad Pitt was the only
No.
one I kind of got invested in, honestly,
Really?
of the
Okay.
bunch. Like I thought Brad Pitt came out the cleanest out of this, but Margot Robbie in particular, and I love Margot Robbie. She's given 110%. It's nothing, not a criticism because of performance in any way. It's more just God. I found her character insufferable and repetitive, and didn't really have anywhere to go.
Yeah.
And it just felt like it was the same beat over and over and over again. And just, especially takes up so much of that last act when Spider-Man shows up, and that's not spoilers in the trailer.
Oh yeah. But the way he shows up is not in the trailer.
That is true. So I won't say much about that beyond that right
We'll get
now.
to that.
But just like
yeah.
so much of that last act is about Margot Robbie's character and the guy who's I forget his name. What's his name?
Manny?
Manny, yes.
Yeah.
And Manny, who I like Manny okay. Although he kind of had similar problems to me.
Really? I feel like to me, he was really the real person anchor of the movie. To me, it was all around Manny's perspective.
Sure. Like, I think there was like very few scenes to these characters I connected to. There were two scenes in particular I thought were fantastic.
Okay.
And we'll talk about those when we get into spoilers. That like everything about it's like if there was more of this in this film, I would be much more invested in what's happening. But a lot of us kind of felt to me just a lot of noise in circumstance, and it got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm ready for something of more substance. I feel like I didn't get that as much as I wanted to.
I feel like because it starts and ends with Manny alone, right?
Yeah.
Like on his own. And I felt like he was the everyman perspective on Hollywood. He was an outsider in every sense of the word, from the fact that he was poor and also that he was Hispanic. And that allowed us to kind of his perspective on the industry kind of hit those notes. And I appreciated that. I wish there was a lot more of I forget the Asian lady's character.
She was good. Yeah,
And then the trumpet guy, the jazz, like the jazz guy.
Yeah.
I wish there was more of both of them in the movie.
I agree.
But I understand the purpose that they served within the film, and I think they were meant to be kind of satellite characters, just meant to convey certain things about the time and era, like the fact that this woman, she's Asian and she's lesbian and she is accepted and loved within this realm. And of course the jazz player's arc as a black guy in the industry in that time. I just appreciate what they did with that character and how they showed that general arc, but that has something more to do with a larger theme that I want to talk about later. But as far as the actual people within there, you have the famous star who's having trouble transitioning to talkies. But he's a big deal. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of like money, has a lot of influence over people on his shoots. But he also is really tired of how fake everything is. Margot Robbie is, of course, the super self-assured, egotistical girl who just shows up and everyone loves her, and then she starts actually having to try, and the life gets away with her, and like she has a lot of trouble dealing with the fame and the money, and that kind of leads to her downfall, so to speak. But then in the middle of all of that, Manny is the closest thing I can think of to a regular guy.
Yeah, Manny is definitely meant to be a straight man. I think
yeah, just happening to be the right person in the right place for certain opportunities, and then getting into this industry and going along the whole arc that he goes through of the movie. I feel like that, in terms of having these different stories surrounding that era, I
Yeah.
feel like that was pretty interesting to
Well,
have all of those characters doing their things. And they do all change and evolve over the course of the movie. They have their own point in terms of what this did to different people.
and I understand the structure. I understand their place in it. I understand the what's I'm looking for, the
Intent.
intention behind their inclusion. I know why they're in the story. I
Mhm.
know what role they're supposed to play. I know how they tie into the larger themes. I think the problem I just had is I just didn't find them interesting. Um, and I and again that's why I say this movie isn't for me.
Yeah.
Um, is like it feels very style over substance, and the style over just became too much, and I feel like the substance kind of got lost in the mix of that. To the point where I feel like at certain points it just became chaotic noise. Where
I
there wasn't a lot of room for stuff to breathe. And the scenes where I did really like and I really started connecting to the material was when it kind of took a step back to actually let the moment breathe and let
Mhm.
everything kind of exist within that space. But there's plenty of other times where just loud music and characters being bombastic and shouting at each other, and it just all like it's feel like chaos for the sake of chaos, and I just get lost in the mess.
Well, that's the idea of what Hollywood was like before the Hays Code has always fascinated me
Mm-hmm.
because um there is this, when you start doing more research into the history of film and oppression and all that stuff, um there's a lot of stuff that we've lost to history because of puritanical, like overwhelming pressure from conservative forces in our world. And there was a lot more, like right when talking pictures first started happening, right before the Hays Code was implemented. And you'll see some of those protesters out front of that movie set that Robbie's character first goes to. Um, but this whole push for decency in film or whatever, I before it was enforced in the form of the Hays Code, there was actually a lot more diversity and representation within film and within California. There was still plenty of, white supremacy going on, and but a lot of actual good representation was already happening. You had people dressing in gender nonconforming ways. You had trans people in there. You had queer people of all stripes in there. You had people of different races in there. Like there was actually a pretty decent amount of artistic diversity going on there. And even then, outside of that, when you talk about the people working on the films, you had a wide range of personalities and stuff. And that's part
Mm-hmm.
of why I loved the opening party scene, which is a solid 20 minutes long. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That long take they do through that crowd, like just the sheer madness of that opening party. I liked it as a stage setter
Mm-hmm.
for the era that we're talking about. Because if you're going off of just what we think of when we think of old timey stuff, we're not thinking of, you know, crazy parties and orgies and cocaine and like all that crazy stuff. We kind of tend to think of people a little more dignified and conservative, but that's because you have to look to find that stuff now because it's all been erased by this stupid, like, super puritanical Christian overarching force within America. And the reason that a lot of the movies from that era are just gone. They're completely gone because no one sought to preserve them because you couldn't show them anymore. And that's I really love the Criterion collection and the Criterion channel because they have a lot of stuff from back then that they bring back sometimes just to show what it was like. Um, like there were a lot of movies that were kind of the beginning of this movement of black artistic black artistry in film. There was actually like early African American pioneers of cinema, and that kind of just went away for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because that's how the industry worked. But I appreciated the movie really investing in just how fucking crazy and unhinged and unrestrained that era was.
Hmm.
And seeing that embodied in that way was just really fucking cool to me.
I
I
can
love
see that. I think it's a fair
that.
argument, and from a historical perspective, I can definitely see why that would be like why that would grab you and why that'd be so interesting to observe.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just like I think it suffers from a story perspective for that reason. So it can't for me. It's like I definitely see that, I respect it, and I understand the creative choices that were made to bring that era to life. It just didn't come together in a way that I felt satisfying as an overall story for me personally.
Why? It's
Because
like
again, like.
honestly, the thing that reminds me of is the opening scene of The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they do is they have this big party, which is an excuse for all these characters to come together, and you establish the setting, you establish the current environment that they're in, the political environment that they're in. You establish multiple characters and their influence on their surroundings and their relationship with their environment and what they're responsible for. Like you get all these different character dynamics established very efficiently within this relatively short scene. Like it's not a short scene per se because it's not strictly dialogue based,
Mm-hmm.
but from a storytelling perspective, that is wickedly efficient.
I'm not talking strictly in the opening scene here. I'm talking just
Oh,
how it plays overall.
oh,
Um,
okay.
like if the opening 20 minutes of this movie, for example, were followed by a more character-driven narrative where there was a bit more nuance to how people were portrayed, I would say, yeah, that works perfectly well in establishing all that. But I just didn't feel like it culminated in anything I found particularly interesting. To me, it just got kind of repetitive.
Well, then you go off with Manny and what's his name, George or whatever. I forget what Brad Pitt's character's name is, but you go off with them, and then you have the other characters getting ready for their day on set, right? And then you have them get involved in the industry, and you have that whole crazy thing of seeing how film shoots worked back then, right? And then you have each of them kind of getting their foothold in what's going on, or at
Sure,
least
I mean, like
Manny and
structurally, sure. Like
yeah.
I'm not saying the story itself doesn't work from a structure standpoint. I didn't feel like there was enough in-depth material for me personally to connect with any of it. So yeah, all this stuff is happening. They're getting their foothold in the industry, but I don't care about any of it. Because like for me, these characters haven't given me a reason to care about them. Or like even find them interesting. It's one thing if like I don't even like them, I still find them interesting, I'll still watch the rest of the film. But if I'm not even finding them interesting, they're just not a lot of reason to care where their story eventually goes.
I guess I didn't find them interesting from like a personal character perspective so much as what they represented and how that interacted with the industry. Like the main character of the movie is none of these people. It's the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And like the way that transforms and affects the people caught up inside of it. Like that's the point. These people are not meant to be someone that you really deeply connect with so much as ways to see what this machine does.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's how I connected to it. But
I can see that, and
um,
I feel like that is a valid way to look at it. It just didn't work for me.
yeah,
That's
no,
what boils down to.
I get that. I'm getting like
I know. I'm repeating myself often.
you keep repeating like it didn't work for me, and I'm like, okay.
I don't know.
Do you have
I'm
more to say
tired.
about it other than like you didn't like it and you just didn't connect with it?
In
Like,
my defense, I hopped right from therapy to this. I'm a little spacey.
all right. But
But let me
okay,
talk about the scenes I
so
did like, because I do want to talk about those. So I
well,
guess we can.
let's first talk about like the other elements of the movie. The cinematography is fucking amazing.
Yeah, no argument.
The long shots that this movie does are great.
Sure.
The soundtrack is a fucking banger. Like the soundtrack of this movie is crazy good. The performances are great. I feel like there's a lot of humor in this movie that landed really well for me. It was just really entertaining all the way through. And it did have some decent quiet moments, but honestly, the second time watching the movie, it paid off even more than the first time. Because then I had time to kind of pay attention to more of the little details. And there were certain things that kept popping up that I was a big fan of, from musical motifs that happened again and again, even in different instruments and stuff, depending on the scene, um, to certain thematic moments like the "I love you, I love you, I love you" thing. Um, and it was just fascinating to see how that played out and how those things were representative of other things changing and staying the same, and art imitating life and all this other stuff. But that's um without getting into too many of the details, this is a movie that is about the film industry, but it is also very much a movie about life from a high level perspective, like
Okay.
a wider perspective of the rise and fall and hardships and the roller coaster of going through life. And people like Brad Pitt's character plays this dude who is realizing that his best days are behind him,
Mm.
and he hasn't built anything really lasting. And of course, we see the rise and fall of Margot Robbie's character, and like all these characters have a bit of a rise and fall arc, except for the Asian lady. Um,
Yeah.
but there is thematically kind of this concept of the world changing and leaving you behind, and you finding your own way to make peace with that on a certain level. Uh, this whole idea that you can get everything, and then in a moment, getting involved with the wrong thing can make it all go away, and you can still be okay after that. There's so many different representations in here of things that can happen in life, and over the course of the whole movie, the way that it deals with that, especially with the ending, is showing how this is all just how it goes. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but that's part of the excitement of life. That's what makes it interesting. And that's what makes it interesting to watch on screen, is to know that there are these larger things going on, and you get to experience these different things that maybe you don't get a chance to experience in life. But really, when it comes down to it, that's what we connect with, and that's what we have. And that really hit more on the second time around when I was talking to my dad afterwards about it too. And it was funny because he really liked this movie, and he said it's interesting, it's different, like it has something else to show and offer. And we started talking about the whole life thing. And I told him, like, do you realize that this was made by the same guy who made La La Land? And he's like, oh my God, I hated that movie. Like, yeah, I did not care for La La Land, which is like a different kind of love letter Hollywood.
Yeah.
But I just really appreciated that the larger themes that are in here, because it is such a big, long movie with so many things going on, it's easy to get lost in it. But the more I've thought about this movie, the more rewarding it became to me. So I really enjoyed it, and I've continued to appreciate it more as time passes.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know if I'll watch it a third time. I'll tell
No,
you that.
that's already 6 hours of your life, man. I don't know if I can go for more than that.
I mean, I've watched the full cut of Justice League like 3 times. So
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
it's not just that I enjoyed it; it's that I got something out of it.
Neat.
I still really enjoyed that review. Actually, I really liked that we got like the whole round table going with the four of us. That was really
We did,
cool.
yeah. It was a pain in the
Um,
ass to put that all together.
well, I mean, oh no, we can't just toss the recording up. We have to edit them together. Like, come on,
Oh
man.
no, I have to do the bare minimum. Like, what are you monsters doing to me and make me work to actually put these up?
um,
But anyway,
yeah,
I like I didn't quite get that out of it. That being said, I do see what you're saying.
yeah.
And maybe that is a case where I'd have to watch it again. But that being said, like I feel like if I wasn't too invested the first time, I probably wouldn't be the second time. But who knows?
I honestly
Maybe I
think it
was.
might be the opposite, because then you'll know not to be directly invested in the characters, and you kind of just pay more attention to the larger stuff going on.
I don't know. I also just. I guess I just never. I don't usually find movies where like, oh, the main character is not the characters. I just don't find those movies interesting in general for me
I would
personally.
I would be really interested to see your reaction to Powers Katsi.
Is that
Be honest, Katsi, just the whole Katsi trilogy. Just show it to you, see what you think.
I don't even know what it is. So
It's a very famous trilogy of films that each one took like 10 years to make.
damn.
Um, and they are just footage from all around the world, put together in a certain sequence to convey different themes. It actually tells a story without characters or dialogue. It is literally like footage of the planet and different things happening on the planet and then cities and people, but not a single fucking word is said. And it's widely considered like landmark cinema. Of course,
Okay,
I think
that's
the first one is
different.
best, but it as a trilogy, it does serve a purpose.
Okay, so that's a little different. I actually would be interested to watch that just out of sheer
Oh,
curiosity.
all right. Well,
Yeah.
maybe that'll open your eyes to a new kind of storytelling.
I mean, I mean, that's different than what we're talking about here because this definitely does have like a cast of characters and like
Well, yeah,
arcs and a
but
point.
I'm saying that you can have kind of both things going on at once, like layers, like
Sure,
an
and
onion
like all
or a
good movies have
cake.
layers. It just depends on the execution. In this case, it didn't really work for me. But again, I'm gonna say that for last time because I've already said like 20 times before now. So,
Uh-huh.
uh,
And Michael,
with that shit-eating grin, what you say what you're gonna say?
did this movie work for you?
You're a fucking asshole.
What am I asking questions?
Oh yeah, you're totally asking a totally in good faith question with that shit-eating grin.
I mean, did it work for you? Like the way that everything was put together? Like,
You know
as
what? No, it didn't. Now that you mention it,
holy shit, I didn't know that. Okay, well,
you know,
recool this conversation.
it was on the tip of my tongue, but I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I thought I kept it inside. So you know, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad we brought this out in the open. Now I feel really secure in this conversation and
Good,
not
good.
talked down to at all.
All right. Do we want to jump to spoilers so we can really talk about this or what?
Yeah, we can just jump into spoilers.
All right, spoiler time,
Yeah,
spoiler
spoiler.
time. Time for spoilers.
Mm.
Okay, so
I said that I do want to talk about the one scene in particular. I thought I was like, okay, this, despite all my misgivings about the rest of this film, this is a perfect scene.
sure.
Was the scene where what was the name of the musician?
Sydney.
Sydney. No, not the Asian one.
Sydney.
Okay, okay, okay. I'm just racist. So,
Yeah. Apparently.
that
I don't
one's
know
on
why you
me.
think,
I'll acknowledge that
why
one.
would you think Sydney is more of an Asian name than
I
for
don't
dude?
know.
One of the most famous black people in the world in
I'm
history
fucking
is Sidney
tired. I have no
Poitier.
excuse. The white supremacy took over for a brief minute.
Oh boy. All right. Well, you caught yourself on it this time.
I
So I'm
did.
glad
I
I
did.
don't
That
have
was
to
on.
say it.
I take accountability. That one's on me.
Proof, everyone. I've been saying it for years.
I just hope no one takes that clip out of context. My
Wait,
camera.
where'd your video go?
The USB's on this is sensitive. Hold on one sec. Huzzah! There we go.
There we go. All right.
But yeah, where Sydney is asked to put on the black makeup to
Yeah.
darken his skin
Yeah.
for the lighting. I thought everything about that scene was perfect.
You think the way you see it in his face.
Yeah, like that's kind of more the shit that I wanted.
Yeah.
But like everything from like that is a case where not a word needed to be said. It was all told through body language and just how uncomfortable the framing was.
Mm-hmm.
And just how long it lingered on those shots and just the look of just pure heartbreak on his face when he actually did it. Like
Well, yeah, you could tell he didn't want to ruin it for the other people in the shoot, but when he leaves the lot that day and says, "Keep the badge, I'm not coming back."
Yeah.
That was a beautiful, elegant scene. That's part of why I wish we got more out of those characters.
Because that's
But
some of his characters. Yeah.
I don't know that there was I don't know, we would have had to make the movie longer.
Yeah.
So that would have been fine with, but what was the other scene?
The other scene I liked, I wouldn't call it perfect, but I did like the scene where after Brad Pitt's friend dies.
Oh
Uh,
God, yeah.
When not only learns the news, but he's trying to learn how to like be a talking actor. And his at the time wife is there, and she's giving him notes, and he kind of loses it on her. I thought that was actually a very nice layered scene that's not just communicating his frustration with trying to adapt to this changing world, but also grieving his friend.
Yeah.
Who kind of like saw something in him that no one else did at the time. I thought those were two like of the scenes that I felt like I'm emotionally invested in. Both those like legitimately got me.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what the movie does. In the second half, that's where you start getting into that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I do appreciate Manny's character arc in that initially you're kind of more sympathetic to him,
Mhm.
but when it really comes down to it,
He's still a cognitive machine. Yeah.
well, it's not just a cog in the machine. He's still willing to sell his soul.
Yeah, that's more or
Uh,
less what I mean. Yeah.
yeah, he's the one who starts policing these other characters. He's the one who kicks. God, I feel I'm gonna look up her name. I feel fucking shitty saying the Asian lady. Um, she deserves better.
I'm not gonna try because
She's
clearly I can't say it right.
fantastic. She really
He
is.
really
Like,
is, yeah.
um, also I gotta love the random cameos that pop up where you're like, what? Why? Like Olivia Wilde showing up for like 2 seconds
I
at the
forgot
beginning.
she was in it.
Yeah, she's in there for like a moment. Okay, that's Sydney Palmer. Okay. Fucking Reggie. Um, where is she? Is she further up here? Wow.
I take it she's really down the
I
casting scheme.
don't know how uh IMDb sorts the listing um of the characters of the actors in their movies, but yeah, she is still not. There are people who played extras in the movie that are not. She wasn't that minor. Jesus Christ, what the Okay, I'm gonna go to Letterboxd. They're better about this shit. Babylon. Yeah.
Okay.
God, I love
The
this fucking
actress's
movie.
name apparently is, I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation. Lee Jong Lee.
Lady Faye. There you
Lady
go.
Faye. Yeah.
Yeah. She's only been in 8 movies. Good for her. This is kind of a big get for someone who hasn't been in a lot. But yeah, Lady Faye. So he's the one who ends up telling Lady Faye that she can't be um part of their studio anymore because she's been seen frolicking around with Nelly. And that kind of just shows how the more conservative push is coming towards the films and pushing into it as they start trying to get more appeal and wider and that's part of why the whole thing with the blackface happens, where um they literally say that if we don't have him looking as black as the other characters because he's directly lit, um then it looks like a mixed race band, which means that we can't like sell the tape in Texas.
Yeah.
Which of course it's fucking Texas, but the way that this stuff starts encroaching on it, and it all regards like the larger appeal of things, and even where he is the one who has to come in and like manage Nelly at one point. um and he just does it, and he's like, well, you got to do it, like you gotta, it's just how it works. Which honestly, on a certain level, I find that relatable, because if you're getting the dream job that you want, like, is it really worth it to give all of that up on principle just so that you can stand up for this thing against this thing? They're just going to replace you and keep doing what they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
how important are you really? But are you going to give up all of your dreams just to stand up for this one principle along the way? Like, what are you going to get out of it, really? And in terms of of course, Sydney would answer that with his basic fucking dignity, but of course, what he was asked to do was way more fucked up. So there's that. But I really do appreciate those more human moments that pop up later in the film. And I think one of the things that they try to do through this movie, which I do think that they did pretty effectively, but you do have to pay a lot of attention to catch some of the stuff, because there was stuff the second time around I totally missed the first time around, is that the character development that each of the characters get is kind of more encapsulated in how they interact with the other people around them and with situations. Like Jack Conrad's character, he's straight up like, he's kind of a piece of shit in a lot of ways.
Which
But
character?
George and Brad Pitt.
Okay. Sorry, I spaced out for a brief second. Good.
But yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit.
Well, yeah. big time.
but very much in the way that was acceptable for, a charming, attractive, famous man to be. He's a womanizer. He jumps from one wife to the next. He's very uh he's very just go with the flow, easygoing, like kind of dismissive in a lot of ways, but and a raging alcoholic.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, he does genuinely care about people. He is a nice guy in a lot of ways. Um, he's responsible. He's like single-handedly responsible for taking Manny under his wing,
Yeah.
and I've met people like that. I actually have a person like that who has been part of my life and helped me get through a few years of my career. Um, and those people love being helpful, and they just want to live their lives how they want, and they just think people should be left alone. And God bless you. I love you. Go be free and do your thing. And I really appreciated how his arc goes from him being super celebrated in Hollywood to him slowly losing that shine and realizing that he can't swing it
Yeah.
in the hockey era. And to the point where at the very end, he's kind of just sustaining and he doesn't feel like he's part of anything significant anymore. And that was really what he was living for. He wasn't living for love. He wasn't living for the fame. He really believed in the art.
Mm.
Um, and you see that theme pop up throughout the movie. It's his conflict with his one wife, who was the Broadway actor.
Yeah.
Um, you see that pop up early on when he's drunkenly talking about like we owe our audiences better.
Yeah.
Um, and at the end, when he's just participating in crap, and he just decides like, I'm dating a young, beautiful woman. I have plenty of money. Everyone loves me, but I'm not involved in the excitement of the zeitgeist anymore. And he just decides that that's the time to kill himself.
Yeah.
And he tips people huge, as you could see. Like, he loves treating people around him well with the stuff that he has, but he kind of is just a lost soul with nothing aside from the art that he's pursuing.
Yeah.
And I found that pretty compelling as just a concept.
Yeah, like of all the characters, I feel like he was the one I was at the very least most interested in for the reasons you just laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does feel like he was the one that was allowed the most room to breathe in that capacity. That wasn't just caught up in the hustle.
Yeah. Um, for Nellie's character, I think the big thing with her that, you know, there are people who are like, you either are a star or not one, and I am one, and they just go and they just like act entitled and they get it. And yeah, she got to. I appreciate the theme of that essentially mirroring the whole curse of the Disney child star, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have someone who is very exciting and fun, and they just, they kind of don't really have any preamble to them coming onto this. They just have an energy that people like. And then they get to the point where they're hot and an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people want them at that point, because they have that young, intense energy, but they're also very determined to show that they're not a little girl anymore. So they have that whole era. And sometimes that era tears people apart. Like,
Yeah, the Sarah
you look at
Lynn
Lindsay
effect.
Lohan. But seeing this happen to this character, I thought was a great show of not just what it does to the person, but the fact that the person really is kind of insane to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And this industry does not care. It kind of rewards that kind of unhinged behavior until it's no longer useful to them, at which point they just dump that person out and let them fall into whatever drugs, alcohol, reckless, destructive behavior will consume them. And it does a lot of the time. Um, but I like those as concepts. I liked looking at this whole story from those perspectives and kind of framing the different things they were involved in. I really loved, as far as the film stuff goes, I loved that opening shoot, that whole all day shoot in the desert with like the
Yeah.
knights and shit and all the people actually dying.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
film sets were fucked up back then. That is very real.
I believe
Maybe
that.
not the number of people that died, but it was, yeah, shit was dangerous back then.
I believe. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And the first day with sound when they're trying to shoot the movie. I loved that.
Oh,
I
the
love
lawn
that.
sequence.
Yeah, well, as a sound person, like as someone
Mhm.
who's worked on sound for films, it was very funny because the sound guy was a toxic piece of shit, no question. But just having it be this new technology that nobody understands, and the fact that you have, for example, like the cameras back then are so loud themselves that you can't have them like in the open with people as they're recording sound, and just the number of things that went wrong and the escalation of it throughout that scene
Yeah.
I found very entertaining.
Yeah, I could see that. Nelly is a character, like it goes to the intention versus execution. I understand what they're going for with her. I understand what they wanted to say and how they were saying it.
Yeah.
But you shut the fuck up.
You just keep coming back to the same sentence. I'm sorry. It's like a
I didn't
meme
even finish it. You don't know what I was gonna say, god damn it.
What were you gonna say, Michael?
Don't worry about it now.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that the execution of the character design here, I felt like it failed to convey that to the full effect it could have. At least compared to other examples of that similar archetype that I felt were done better.
Mhm.
Like I mentioned this briefly before, like I would say like Sarah Lynn comes in mind, for example.
Well,
Who,
sure.
granted, she had much more time to develop that character than this character has, obviously.
Yeah. And that is
Um,
an actual proper from child star embodiment of that. But I
yeah,
think to convey that properly, you need to give that person their own whole movie.
for sure. Yeah. But from what we had here, it came off more as repetitive and loud and bombastic as opposed to a more nuanced taking the character that I would have liked to have seen. Mm.
I don't get the repetitive side. I think it changed as the industry changed.
I feel like, especially towards the third act, a lot of her scenes basically revolved around her and Manny saying, "Oh, I fucked up. I fucked up. I'm in a bad place. I did like I lost a lot of money." He's like, "Okay, I'll take care of it." He takes care of it. Comes back. "Oh, Manny, I fucked up. I fucked up. I did this thing now that you need to fix. Okay, I'm gonna do this." Then they're just high on coke again, and they're just doing more coke, and they're talking about how they want to live life and do all those things. A lot of this happens over and over again in the third act.
Manny doesn't do coke in the third act.
Well, I mean, he doesn't
Manny
do it.
only does coke in the opening.
She does it in front of him when they're in the hotel room, and he's trying to get her like, "I need you to focus so we can get out of here."
Yeah.
And like to me, like
He's grown as a character. She's fallen further into the depths of what's happening with her.
perhaps
And
I
that's the
phrased
thing.
that incorrectly. My point still stands. Is for me, this most of my issues again are in the third act of the film. In
That's
regards to this character,
the thing
I,
that confuses me about that is just the fact that in the third act of the movie, that is essentially one sequence where she comes to him and he's mad about it and he's like, all right, I'll take care of it, and he goes and tries to take care of it, and um and she's just high on drugs continuing. She's a full-blown fucking junkie at that point, and he's just trying to like wrangle this, and he's kind of pissed off, but it doesn't really repeat itself.
maybe we just have different interpretations of it. To me, this felt too manic, and the dialogue just didn't grab me. And it's me, I don't know. I can't really explain it clearly because I haven't seen the movie in like 3 fucking weeks. So my perspective is just that at that point, I felt like they just kept saying the same thing over and over again, just like how you kept pointing out what I was saying over and over again, and it just felt like it lost me. That's best. That's what
It
it
didn't
is.
work for you.
See, you shut the fuck up.
I like it. We're trying to find different ways to say the same thing.
At least I'm trying.
I know. As a writer, I understand. But no, I feel like that whole final sequence was also a good. I mean, it's the trope, right? It's the fact that, this guy has kind of moved on with his life, and there's this woman that he's still low-key obsessed with, and she's causing all these problems, but he can't help but try to help her. Like, he can't fully pull himself away from that, which I can definitely relate to. But I feel like it was an effective thing to use to show, like, basically get him to the point where he loses everything, like, because he had built it all, and the part of his whole thing is the rise and fall, and he was doing pretty well just being the cog in the machine that he was. He got to the point where he was an executive almost, and he lost it all because of this junky mess of a woman who just could not get her shit in order. And even at the end, when she promised that she would do this, she is a person who is driven by whims and good feelings. And when it came time to actually follow through on that, she didn't want to follow through on that. She just walked off into the night, knowing that Manny was better without her.
And again, thematically, I understand the intention behind all of it. I think by the time we got to that stage of the story, I was just so exhausted by all of it, I wasn't invested in any of it. What do you want from me, man? I'm doing my best here.
You're saying it didn't work for you? No, that's the thing. Like that's something that did work for me. I was still connected to the story. I was interested. I had a lot of fun with the rest of the stuff. And that final sequence that got really fucking dark, I actually found really entertaining because I'm like, all of a sudden this turns into like the opening of Irreversible for a few minutes, like just going deeper and deeper into this weird dungeon place of like, what the fuck is gonna happen? And that was uncharacteristically like fucked up and weird and strange. But I also found it interesting that it was showing how this wild side of Hollywood did still exist at that point, but it had basically gotten so concentrated and fucked up and more depraved as it went that it just turned into this weird underground, like, criminal enterprise, essentially. Like, it's been overrun by its drugs and its obsession with people that like are different, and like sex dungeons and just like MMA women beating the fuck out of each other until the floor is slick with blood, and it really does that sequence like a haunted house, where you just kind of wander through and you're like, oh, this is fucked up. Okay, weird. But I found that fun. I like that a lot.
Fair enough.
There's just the path that this movie follows, and just the humor of it landed with me all the time. Like, so many, I can't think of a joke in this movie that landed flat with me. I think it did really well. But generally, I was able to get a lot out of the overarching stuff that was going on. And one of the things that I noticed, and it's part of why I do kind of want to watch it again, is the whole I love you, I love you, I love you thing, right? So you essentially have the opening scene movie shoot where, you know, Brad Pitt has the explosions in the background and the sun's setting and the butterfly lands on him and he kisses the girl, and it's this whole swelling, beautiful moment, right? And then you have that kind of moment after talking happens where he has the dialogue of like, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay. And it's kind of sappy and everything. And then you have the people laughing at it in theaters, right?
Yeah.
But then you have the moment where they're caught up in this crazy fucking mess, this last sequence with Manny and Nellie. And she runs off to dance, and he's like exasperated, and he just wants her to just work with him on this. And he's trying to tell her, like, don't you understand? And he says in Spanish, te amo, te amo, te amo. I love you, I love you, I love you. They're reproducing that scene again. And then the very last sequence, we're doing the compilation of like him watching the movie, and then all these different sequences from different films throughout the film history start showing up on screen, which is part of what I really I loved that ending sequence. It was just this assault of sight and sound, which really is only more rewarding the more you know about films. Like, I've seen at least half of those movies, so seeing these things popped up, I was like, oh shit, I get what they're doing. But they have before that, when they're leading up to that, when he's watching movies in the theaters, and this is, you know, 25, 30 years after he's gone through all this shit. And it has a scene in one of the movies where he says, I love you, I love you, I love you. So you have this thing where you have art and life imitating each other, and you have this example in the movie where it is that dramatic, and you have movies trying to imitate that, and you have the fact that you have these dramatic sequences that are taken and played for entertainment later, and he starts seeing the stories of what he went through in his life being played out on screen, and it's something that new generations are getting to see, and they show the different kinds of people sitting in the theater for that final sequence, and it's a pretty diverse set of people, and there's this there's this theme going through the whole movie of art and life imitating each other as they go, and where it feels cheapened and where it feels real, and the way that in the end we have our own personal stories that are really intense, but when you back up and look at it at a wider perspective, we're all just part of this smaller thing, and for the most part most of us are not going to be remembered by that many people. We might have the people that we immediately know in our lives, and they'll remember us for as long as they live. But by and large, most of us are not going to make a large enough impact on society to be immortalized in some real way. And I think at the end, what he's realizing is that he's seeing how he himself is not going to be what is immortalized, but his experience, what he's gone through, is something that other people connect to. And you can throw that up on screen and people will connect to it and react to it. And that in that moment, he realizes that he's part of this larger thing, not just in the industry, not just in art, but just life in general. There is something deeper going on here with this movie that is really clever and really subtle in the way that it pushes it through. And I think there's more stuff like that peppered through the movie that I would need to dig into more to really understand. But I think that there is a larger statement that this movie is trying to make beyond just like, oh, check out these characters doing their thing, and that's part of why this movie hits me so hard. It is doing something more that I think is worthwhile, and that I think I wish more movies tried to do. In sacrificing that level of personal connection, it is trying to tell a bigger story of not just these people and the industry they're in, but how that applies to kind of the larger philosophical scope of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I fucking love that. That blew me away.
I don't really have a good response to that, so I'm just gonna say,
It didn't work for you on that level.
I'm trying to be amicable here, asshole.
I'm just having fun, Michael.
Yeah, at my expense.
I mean,
you.
Sometimes, yeah, why not have some fun? Sorry, I just tapped on one of the reviews here and I forgot. There's that one scene earlier in the movie where they're doing like line reads and stuff, and they're brainstorming script stuff, and they just have a couple of things dropped which are just references to other movies. And one of my favorite ones is just when he says, "Frankly, Scarlett, you're a cunt."
Hey, is this in what is this?
It was in the tent when the medieval battle was happening, and Jack Conrad is talking to his cohorts, and they're brainstorming lines and stuff.
Okay.
It's just brilliant because it's like just the vaguest, weirdest throwback, making fun of Gone with the Wind. I love that. I love that so much. It's little things like that.
All right. Well, such as it is.
A lot of people say that one movie or another is a lot. This movie may be the most.
Okay. Good as closer as any.
This is a garbage plate movie.
Are you looking at Letterboxd reviews now?
Pretty much. I mean, you know what a garbage plate is, right?
I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. But
no, it's just where they put like everything onto the plate.
Okay,
it's just like an overwhelming variety of stuff and flavors. Like, I wanted to do this in 70 millimeter. That would have been cool.
I think what it boils down to is like this movie is definitely a lot. and it's not for everybody. But that being said, if you're down for the ride, then you might get something out of it.
Absolutely.
More
Absolutely hokey, over the top, tonally inconsistent, pretentious, and depraved. To me, these are not problems. 5 stars. I feel like I relate to this person. I'm gonna fall.
that's a
I'm
very
already
accurate way to
falling for
describe it.
them.
So yeah, that's all I really have to say about Babylon. What now? Trying to wrap this up, goddammit.
I'm sorry. Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember that short film of like, "Hi, stranger. I see you're looking at my butt," like that. That weird little naked clay character is this guy. Is this guy? This guy.
A little bit.
It has a letterboxed entry. It has an entry.
Vaguely remember
Why is
that.
this on this website? Why are people actually earnestly rating this? Someone gave this. Oh my god. Oh, why does this exist here?
So anyway, Babylon. Make of it what you will. I've lost Muha to letterbox.
No, this is people commented on this saying it disturbed them, and I found it really weirdly comforting. Is that weird? Like, and that's how that's how I related to it.
Babylon or the high short
Oh, the
film?
High Stranger, 100%.
Uh,
I found that like really wholesome and oh my god. What? Okay, I'm gonna have to go into this. I'm just gonna show you. You know how you can tap on a person and see how many like different reviews for the times they watch something, right?
yeah.
So let's. Oops. So we're gonna click Broski here. This is how many times he's not only watched but logged and reviewed Hi Stranger.
That's commitment.
And each one has its own review, so now I'm gonna have to read through all of these.
Okay. Anyway, so that's gonna wrap it up for season 10 of the show. We'll sit down and finally tabulate our best and worst of lists and start get that going.
This may be the film equivalent of taking a Klonopin.
Muha, buddy, I need you to focus.
Why?
Because I'm hungry and I want to eat.
Okay, fine.
So, yeah, so wraps up for season 10. We're gonna work on our best and worst love list. I know we're way behind on all of it, but we'll eventually catch up. In the meantime, we're gonna just hop right into this year's releases. We've already seen a couple that we need to sit down and talk about, and there's still stuff like plane and train and automobiles. I don't know.
Comparing this to Boogie Nights. That's interesting.
So we'll get on that. Meantime, you want to fit any last reviews or letterbox comments in there, Muha, before we take off? Or is you gonna stare into the corner? Okay. Well,
I'm just gonna say this movie really worked for me.
good night.